So today we're gonna have like a speak on it moment. Well, that's not gonna be called that. If you watched my channel, if you've been following me for a while, like if you started this journey together, first of all, thank you. And then secondly, you probably know what I'm talking about. There used to be this series I used to have where I called it Tuongee. So I will sit down and talk about different topics in Swahili. And then I somehow stopped because let's not even go to the reason why I stopped. Anyway, so today I watched a video from 𝚘𝚑𝚎𝚘𝚑, and then it prompted me to sit down and record this. So we're going to have a Tuongee moment, but it's going to be in English because I feel like my message will be conveyed better if I was to say it in English than if I'm saying it in Swahili. But let's address the thing that's going on around whereby people think that Africans are to be blamed for the coronavirus in China. Now, when I was watching 𝚘𝚑𝚎𝚘𝚎's video, she addressed this and she was so frustrated, and then I was like, I actually get it. I mean, I've had news that in China, people, they had a first hit with the coronavirus and then it died off, started to die off, and then it came back again for round 2, and now they're thinking that it is caused by the African immigrants, which to me doesn't make sense. So Africans are being mistreated in China, and I don't know if it's having a ripple effect in other countries as well. I hope it's not, but then again, I have no idea if it is. And then there was another video that I saw whereby 2 Africans were thrown into a sea of sharks because they were believed to have coronavirus. And that, I mean, the people in the ship were afraid of catching coronavirus. And see, that's the one that triggered me the most, because why does the fact that you're African automatically consider you to have coronavirus? What does you being African have to do with coronavirus? Like, what does your skin color have to do with coronavirus? What does your ethnicity have to do with coronavirus? I don't get it. Like, coronavirus is affecting everybody, everyone, literally everyone, regardless of your ethnicity, your age, your health. It affects everybody. And the fact that you will discriminate Africans or blame them for the pandemic is wrong. Even the fact that people will call it the Chinese virus, that is also just wrong. It might have originated in China, but I don't think it's a Chinese virus, because if it was a Chinese virus, it wouldn't be affecting everybody, would it? So it is not a Chinese virus, it's the coronavirus. It's affecting everybody that's around us. But then it had me thinking, like, how, see, when I saw that, I don't think I was frustrated. I was not as triggered. And for me, that is kind of unhealthy, mainly because you become so accustomed to the bad press that Africa gets, or all these assumptions that people make about Africans, that things like this don't trigger you anymore. And that just shows how messed up the world can be sometimes. And it just shows it's wrong. It's unhealthy for me. It's terrible that it is so normal in my brain and my surrounding that it doesn't shock me anymore. It's wrong. It's just wrong in my opinion. But then if you think about it, think about everything that has been happening. Let's talk about how Ebola happened and it was considered as an African deadly disease. And I get it, it was in Africa. First of all, it wasn't in the whole of Africa. It was mainly in some Western African countries, and then part of Central Africa, and then a little bit of East Africa, very little bit. But it wasn't widespread. But yet, Africans all over were getting blame for the Ebola. And I don't know. And then there was the AIDS, HIV/AIDS, and how people till today think that if they think of, some people think, when some people think of Africa, they think of HIV/AIDS. And it still blows my mind how people can relate the two, even after the fact that HIV/AIDS is everywhere as well. It's in every country, it's in every continent. Why do Africans have to be associated with HIV/AIDS? Why does someone think of HIV/AIDS when they hear the word Africa? That blows my mind, but I don't know. I feel like if you let things like this affect you as an African or affect your perception of Africa, it's just gonna mess you up. You're gonna think like the world is unfair, people are unfair, when in reality, it's just, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. People are allowed to have their perceptions of things. Now, those who are wise would want to be educated about these perceptions, and maybe sometimes will change their mind. But then those who just want to be ignorant will continue being ignorant, and there's nothing you can do about that. People have the freedom to choose what they believe and what they don't believe. But it does mess with your mind sometimes, and I know I have a few friends who like get so upset by this whole thing, and I can understand the anger. And then it just bothers me that for me it's just so normal that it doesn't upset me anymore. But that's the world that we're currently living in. Maybe someday it will change, maybe it will not. So yeah, I just wanted to speak on that, and I feel like each one of us can do our part. Being African is never easy, especially in this world. I will say society, but then depending on what country you're living, especially if you're living out in countries that, if you're living outside of Africa, if you're in the diaspora, being African is not easy. You get a lot of criticism for your accent, for the way you look, for your traditions, for your culture, for your old-fashioned ways. You just get criticism for a lot of things. And being African recently has become kind of it has become kind of a trend, in my opinion. My opinion. I feel like right now being African is a trend. Something after the Black Panther, everybody wanted to associate themselves with their African roots, which is awesome. It's great. It's good that you're seeing African in a good light, that you're seeing the good side of Africa, all the culture that we have to offer, all the great personality, the great music, the great stories. It's glad all that is happening, but how long is it gonna last? That's like my other issue. So in my opinion, people who are growing in this generation right now, like people who are born in the 2010s, they came at a good time, where if you're in the diaspora, you can refer to things like Black Panther and Queen Sono. You can refer to people like Lupita. They're Africans that you can look up to and refer to them, and like being African is so acceptable right now. But then I'm worried that there will come a point that this trend will just die off, like how other trends are. So that's my worry. I just hope it doesn't get to that point, but if it does, I don't know what we can do about it. As much as we'd say that, people would say that we have to blame the colonizer for making us this way. We have to blame the media for the bad press they give Africa, or Westerners for the way they treat Africans. We also have to blame Africans for the way they treat their fellow Africans. For instance, if you're in Africa and you come across, if you have to choose between an African and a Westerner, many people would rather associate themselves with the Westerner than the African. They will give priority to the Westerner than the African. Outside things have more value than your own stuff, like your outside things. Like, how am I saying outside things? Western cultures are more acceptable worldwide. African cultures are not as acceptable, so we're so quick to dispute African cultures and adapt to Western cultures, and I think that's where we fault as Africans. And I'm saying we, because even me, there are some things that are Western that I've adapted and I've just overlooked African cultures, although I try my best to stay as much in tune with my African culture as I possibly can, but there are those moments when I'm just failing. Anyways, we are also partly to blame for this. When we fit into the stereotypes that people have of Africa, when we value other people more than our own people, when we prioritize other cultures more than our own cultures, we are just feeding into all this. Is it even hate? It's not hate, it's like looking down, belittling that's going on of Africa and Africans. So we have to play our role. We need to start valuing our culture more. We need to be teaching the younger generation about the importance of our culture, telling them stories about our culture, telling them about our struggles. We need to do things that will better our people. We were watching a documentary at some point. It was a documentary on Nelson Mandela, and I think one of the things that my dad pointed out was that back then the leaders would get educated and come back and fight for their own people. They will get educated, they will learn more, they will better themselves for the benefit of other people. So whatever they learn, they will apply it to help the society, their societies. But these days, you learn for your personal benefit, and I think that's wrong as well. We get this education, Western countries are advanced. They are more advanced than African countries. So when people are coming to study in Western countries, I have no problem with that. If you're coming to live in Western countries, I have no problem with that. But then what do you do with the knowledge that you have? What do you do with whatever you have acquired? How do you help people back in Africa? How do you help our communities? How do you help our people to better themselves? That is what you have to keep in mind as well. I'm not preaching to other people, I'm preaching to myself as well. I'm not saying this to other people, I'm saying this to myself as well. At the end of the day, you gotta do your part, and then whatever other people's perceptions are of Africa and Africans, don't let that affect you. My part, I think, as an African is to always be proud of who I am, to express my cultures, to express the love that I have for Africa, to empower young Africans that I come across, to be proud of who they are, to be proud of their roots, to be proud of their color, to be proud of their culture, just to be proud of themselves as Africans, and just be proud of Africa and spread the African love. There's never been a point in my life whereby I've been ashamed of being African. Literally, never been a point in my life. And I don't think there'll ever be a point in my life that I'll be ashamed of being African. There might be some traditions I don't agree with. There might be things I might not necessarily agree with. But at the end of the day, I'm African. I'll always be African. And it's something I'll always be proud of. I love our culture. I love our traditions. I love our music. I love our people. I love all the things that Africa has to offer. And I hope to share those things in a positive way with other people, so that those who don't know much about Africa might have a better light of Africa, based maybe on content that I make, on the interaction that I have, or just personal life. So that is my rant for today. My rant was about Africa and Africans, and just my life as an African. Let's do something about it, right? Let's just do something about it. Let's not keep blaming Western countries or colonizers for where we are or for how people treat us. When you blame, nothing's gonna get done. Like, you blame and then what? You're always gonna think you're a victim. I don't think we're victims. I think the colonizer did what they had to do. Was it right? No, but they were fending for their survival. And there's no way of justifying how they took advantage of the African resources. But we are past that. Like, we are way past that. It's a new era. So blaming colonizers or blaming the media or blaming people for how people view Africa, I don't think it's right. For me, I don't think it's right. Do something about it. Make a change. Start by doing small things like just, share your African side, share African values. Do something about it. You can blame all you want, but what's that blame going to do? You'll just end up being a victim. You'll go down as a victim. But if you start with small changes, then you'll change the whole storyline. So let us change this storyline. Let us change the perspective that people have, the bad perspectives that people have on Africa and Africans. I know we can do it. I'm fortunate to grow up surrounded by people who are very vocal about being African, and they will defend their African cultures in a heartbeat, literally. All my friends are Africans, and they are very proud of being African, and they will literally, be on the front line for Africa. So let's do a part. And stop fitting into the stereotype. Stop making it seem like some things we do just misrepresent us. Some things do misrepresent us. So when you're doing those things and you're aware of it, try to snap out of it. Just saying. But let's do something about it. Let's change the perception of people have of Africans. Let's be proud of ourselves. As I said before, people have the choice to believe what they want, but don't let the beliefs of others affect your value or your perception of yourself or of Africa. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. This was long. As usual, keep spreading the African love, and I shall see you next time. Kwaheri.